يا أيها الناس قد جاءتكم موعظة من ربكم وشفاء لما في الصدور وهدى ورحمة للمؤمنين.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, in this module, we want to understand the level of your addiction. Okay, so it's important to understand what pornography addiction is. Okay, and then also understand the common signs of addiction. And then a very important thing to understand, guys, is that addiction functions as a continuum. So when someone's addicted to something, they're pretty much always going to be addicted to that thing in a certain sense. In the sense that once an addict, always an addict. In the sense that this is unfortunately most likely going to be something that throughout your life you're going to have some type of attachment to a certain extent, even if it's just memories of the past. Right? In the sense of if someone's an alcoholic, for example, that person for the rest of their life, they can't be around alcohol. If they see a bottle of alcohol, the type of reaction that they might have is different than someone who never was an alcoholic. Same thing with someone who was addicted to crack cocaine or someone that was addicted to heroin. Someone who was addicted to heroin and was used to shooting up, the heroin into his veins. That person, when they see a syringe, the type of ideas, the type of images, the type of memories that are going to come to him or her is very different than someone who never shot any type of drug inside themselves. Okay, so it's important to understand that addiction is a continuum, okay, and you have to figure out where you are on that continuum, and then just make sure that you always stay, far away from the more intense forms. Okay, this will make sense as we go through this. So, what is porn addiction? So, porn addiction is compulsive attempts to meet sexual and or emotional needs through porn and masturbation. Okay, so it's compulsive. Okay, you can't stop yourself. Right? So it's a bit different than just a sin. A sin is something that, yes, sins can be something that we come attached to, right? Just as in Khayr the Prophet said that goodness is a habit, sins can also become a habit for somebody. But the difference between someone who, has a habit of backbiting and someone who is addicted, has a compulsive addiction towards something. Okay, so it's going to be a bit harder for that person. That person will have to go through therapy. That person will have to go through these types of programs in order to solve that issue. That someone who might be backbiting might not have to. They might just have to, do some general tazkiyah, things of that nature. Anyways, so it's compulsive attempts to meet sexual and or emotional needs. So it's important to understand, guys, that a lot of times when it comes to porn addiction, it's not just about the sexual nature of it, but it's also an emotional attachment to it. That a lot of men and women, they use pornography as a means to cope with emotional issues, in the sense that they're sad, they're depressed, they're anxious, they feel out of control, they feel like they don't have agency in their life. So then through the false sense of control or the false sense of comfort that they find in these screens and in these pornography, they use pornography as a coping mechanism for those emotional and sexual needs. Okay, and this is done through obviously porn and masturbation. We covered a definition of what porn was exactly, right? Now, common signs of addiction, guys, is craving. So, strong urge to return to the behavior. You have a strong urge to continue and to go back to that type of behavior. Tolerance. So you're seeing that it's getting more intense, right? More repetitive, or more frequent, or more intense forms of pornography. Okay. There's also some withdrawal symptoms. When you do try to stop for a month, or when you do try to stop for a week, you notice that you're becoming more irritated, more relentless. You see a sense of sadness or these types of signs. Okay, it can be different depending on the person. And then there's just general sense of I can't control this anymore. Right? Like I've tried making toba, I've tried stopping. I've tried multiple things, and it's not leaving me. That's why I'm saying this is a bit different than just a sin, right? Where okay, I made toba from it, I'm moving forward, I'm not going back to it. This is an issue where you feel like I'm not in control of this anymore. Okay, and then you're seeing that you're continuing despite severe consequences. You're seeing its negative consequences on your deen. You're seeing the negative consequences of it on your confidence or on your productivity and so on and so forth, but you can't stop. You still are doing it even though you're seeing those clear consequences. So these are some signs of an addiction. Now, some key points, guys, and this is what I was highlighting in the beginning, is that addiction is a continuum. So not all addicts look the same. Okay, some people might binge for days, weeks, then abstain for months, even years, but then they'll go back to it, right? And a lot of times that fluctuation depends on stress, right? If someone's going through a very stressful scenario, they might go back to their old coping mechanism, which was pornography. Family circumstances, someone was, married and then they're not married anymore, right? Or someone's going through a very chaotic divorce, and then they go back to their coping mechanism that they used in the past when they were younger, which was pornography. Emotional well-being, which was sort of highlighted before. Relationship status, which was sort of highlighted before. Okay, so it can fluctuate depend on different things. Okay, but the idea is that unfortunately, once you enter into this type of addiction, you're always going to have some type of relationship with it, right? The goal here is to stop that relationship to the best of our ability, right? And for you to be free of it. And inshallah, it's possible with help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything's possible with help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But you have to understand that the reality is that most likely you will always have some type of any connection to this thing, even if it's just past memories. It's just like people that converted and they used to be in the streets. There's always going to be some type of connection to that. Not saying that you like it, but you understand that reality of the streets different than somebody else that was never in it, right? Well, because someone can leave a job after 30 years, but even though they're not in that job force anymore, not a police officer anymore, they're still going to have some of the mannerism or some of the memories of being in the big boys club, of being a police officer, or the case may be. That's the idea here. Okay, so this is a good graph or pyramid to sort of show how it functions. Okay, so somebody at the lowest level might have accidentally been exposed to pornography, and then from that they became more curious, right? And then from that, they started experimenting. So there was control with effort, consuming pornography, but there was some type of control as long as that person put in the effort. Stage number 4 is when it starts being an actual problem, where the person starts realizing that I'm not really in control anymore, which always happens. The person keeps going. And then after that, you get an addict, which is almost daily use, right? And then dominates life, and then a complete obsession where the person, they're fully obsessed with pornography. They can't stop doing it. They're watching videos on a almost continuous level. They're thinking about it. They're watching it. They're replaying things in their mind and so on and so forth. So if you're watching this video, you're most likely somewhere around here, right? From between 3 and 7. Between 3 and 7. Okay, so obviously the idea is to go back to 1, where the only way that you would ever be exposed to pornography is in an accidental way. Okay, and even now, of course, we're going to try to put in barriers to make sure that doesn't happen in the first place. But the idea here is that someone might fluctuate with this, right? Someone at one point of their life might be at level 6, right? Because they're going through a very chaotic situation. But then they make Toba, the situation gets better, so then they go down to level 3. Right, so they're trying their best, but they're seeing that I'm able to stop for a week and then I fall back into it. I'm able to stop for 2 weeks and I fall back into it. I'm able to stop for 1 month, 2 months, but I fall back into it. Right, this is a stage that many people find themselves in. Okay, so the idea is to bring it as low as we can to point number 1, right, where you're not even curious about it. You don't you're at point number 1 or even less than that if possible, and that's you stay there, right? But it's important to understand that if you're not careful, there is a chance that even if you do get to point number 1, if you're not careful, you don't continue to use the tools that we'll be covering, there are chances that you're going to go to step number 2, and then step number 3, and then step number 4, and then step number 5, and then go back to step number 3, and then go up to step number 6. So you have to understand that as long as you're using the tools, okay, that inshallah we'll go over the course, inshallah you'll be able to stay outside of 2, 3 till 7. Okay, so inshallah this gives you at least a better understanding of how addiction functions. Okay, specifically more pornography addiction for us.
يا أيها الناس قد جاءتكم موعظة من ربكم وشفاء لما في الصدور وهدى ورحمة للمؤمنين